I know you signed a confidentiality agreement and can't talk about what happened with the exit at Sportsnet, but the story
Hmm.
was well reported. And for the sake of transparency with our listeners, you were let go during the NHL draft. It was alleged that you leaked draft picks before they were publicly announced. So I'm not going to ask you direct questions about that, but what were your emotions when you parted ways with Sportsnet? Because it's one thing to be a free agent,
Yeah.
but free agency came to you suddenly and unexpectedly, which can probably be hard.
Um, it was, it was, it was bizarre. I think like in media, you're always prepared for anything you're doing to end. But it never hits you until it happens. Um, but the one thing that sort of let me know that everything was going to be fine were the nature of the phone calls I got and the messages I received, either by text or by DM. That it wasn't as if I went through like a long depression or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like after about a week, it was like, oh, okay, you know what? I get to now finally sort of chart my own course here, and I can sort of select through what I want to do, and find a group that I want to work with. Or, and I flirted with this for not very long, but I think all of us will think about this when we go through a situation like I went through. Maybe do something on my own. That I came to the conclusion that maybe if I was 25 and single, I might want to do something like that. But you get a little bit older and you have family responsibilities and mortgages, etc. All of a sudden, it becomes a little bit more difficult to make that lift. So it wasn't as awful as people. I mean, so many people in our industry have been dismissed before, and some of the horror stories are awful. Mine wasn't like that. I kind of looked at it as, okay, hit by pitch, get back in the box, and there are new opportunities on the horizon. And I'll tell you, Brandon, I really think there's one thing that I've always done in my life, really, which some people have always looked at as a negative, but I think really helped me in this situation. And that is, I've never been someone that set goals. I've never had targets. I've never believed that at this certain point in my career, I have to be doing this, making this much money. I got to have this job and I have to have this position. I've got to climb this ladder. Like, I've never done that. I've always just sort of woken up and worked hard and just seen where this thing took me. And that goes back probably to how I consider this to be a very accidental career. If I was more of a goal setter, I may have been more upset than I was. But really, I just looked at this as another chapter in my work career, and it was now up to me to write that next chapter as to what I was going to do. And again, I really do think a lot of it is I don't set goals. So when things happen, I tend to not get too high about them, or I tend to not, in this case, get too low about them.
So 6 months ago or so, had you ever thought about your future at Sportsnet? Like, did it seem like a place you wanted to finish out your career at, or were you
Never thought
thinking,
about it. Never,
yeah,
never thought about it because I mean, because you don't know.
yeah,
Like, again, like, you could ask me, like, what's the media landscape in Canadian sports going to look like in 2 years or 2 months? And I'll tell you, I have no idea. So, like, I would be a total fraud if I said I know exactly what's going to happen to either me or what's going to happen to the landscape. That would be just frivolous and wrong. So, no, and just like now, I have no idea where this is going to go. I just
yeah.
started. I just started with the Nation Network. Do I know how it's going to go the first year? No. Do I know how it's going to go the second year? No. Try to do my best and see where this entire thing leads.
Will you ever be able to address the exit from Sportsnet in more detail? And I guess more importantly, do you have a
Yeah.
desire to address it in more detail publicly?
Um, I don't. You know what? I don't want to be. I don't want to give you a frivolous answer. So, I mean, I don't know. That's probably a question for my lawyer, not a question for me.
Sure.
So I would defer to her on this one. Um, I I would imagine at some point, But again, like having never gone to law school and never gone through anything like this, I'm the wrong person to ask on this
Yeah.
one.
How is your relationship with the NHL?
It's good. It's good. Out of respect for the people that I've spoken to, I won't discuss the nature of the conversations,
Of
but
course.
I don't think that I'll have any issues with a relationship with the NHL.
And what about Sportsnet? Like you mentioned earlier, never wanting to
Yeah.
burn bridges. Like, would you keep the possibility open to even, working with them again at some point down the road?
I've always tried to pride myself on, to your point, like not burning bridges,
Yeah.
and like no matter how thing like look like I mentioned, like Nelson Millman was my biggest backer to
Yeah.
getting the Hockey Night in Canada gig. He fired me on the fringe. Okay, so I've learned never to burn a bridge.
Yeah.
You get more out of a situation when you choose conversation as opposed to confrontation. So as such, I'll never shut a door ever, because who knows? Like who knows where I'm going to be at in my life? Who knows where that company is going to be at in their existence? So many things change. I've always tried to I assume two things. One, I always try to never let cement harden around any idea that I have. And I always assume that other people and other places are always evolving as well. And I try not to let my idea of who they are or what they are in the case of a company harden, and just hold them in place and assume that they're always going to be like that because it gives me comfort. Places change, people change, situations change, media landscapes change. So as such, I would never close a door anywhere.